I'm Joe Rozak. I'll be your host for this morning's show. And today is a exciting night because we actually made it through the primaries, and we now are down to the dueling twosome. So with that, a couple of words of housekeeping rules. First and foremost, in case of an emergency, exit out that way or out that way, take you out. Restrooms are located down the hallway down that way. Also, if you happen to carry one of these things, a rectangular thing in your pocket or your purse, or you're on your person and it happens to go off during the session, and it makes a noise, I will ask you to make a $10 honorary donation to a nonprofit locally, which is
Habitat for Humanity of Kitsap County.
Habitat for Humanity for Kitsap County, $10. I'm not going to write you down or hunt you down, make sure you do that, but we ask to put $10 in your basket for goodwill, or you could turn it off, or you can make the donation without having your phone go off. So, with that being said, we got to get into the rules of engagement here, folks. Okay, so first off is no video recording or still photography is allowed. I was not fast enough on that one. All right. Well, you're teaching me. That's all right. I'll get there. So with that, I just want to let you know that this is being videotaped, and it will be posted to the Facebook page of the Chamber of Commerce, and it will be available usually within 48 hours. Usually we've got 100 or so hits, or sometimes more, especially now that we're getting down to the final election point. The format, each candidate here will be given the opportunity to address you with a 3 minutes opening statement. At which time we have a timekeeper. The timekeeper will put the yellow one up when there are 30 seconds left of your 3 minutes. And then the red one goes up and the time is up. And I will work my way towards your mic and don't surrender it, okay?
Don't throw anything, right?
I don't throw it, but I do got a hook. And I'll pull you off the stage if I need to. The next thing is that we have the audience that's been drafting questions. At the first selection of questions this morning for you, I was quite pleased. There's no duplicates, but every candidate here will have 1 minute to answer the questions. And then during the question and answer period, it's only 1 minute. The yellow will go up panel will go up at 10 seconds, and then the red one goes up when your 10 seconds are up. And then following that, each candidate here will have, at the end of the question period, will have 2 minutes to give you a summary of their platform or their beliefs, or they can actually challenge previous questions or whatever that happened. In today's session, we actually have a unique, an additional value-added component to our discussion, and that's called a challenge card. For those,
It's not a poster.
It's not a poster.
It's not a poster.
So if it is a poster, and
Can't second it.
service purpose, but if one of the candidates is given an answer or response, and the other candidate goes, "Whoa, that's really off," of course they can go challenge. Okay, they just simply have to hold a card. So the first candidate who's saying whatever they're saying gets to finish their time, and then the challenged person gets 1 minute to rebut. And then the first person who made the statement gets a minute in response to that as well.
You get one.
I do want to let you know.
You get one.
That you only get one. One challenge card only, so use it well and use it selectively. With that being said, I think we got everything in order, time and everything that goes with that. So I'm real happy to welcome our candidates. I really express our appreciation for your community leadership and stepping forward to represent those of us in Kitsap County. For beginners now, we go into our 3 minute opening, and we'll start with alphabetically. Irene, 3 minutes to address you.
I'm very happy to be here. Oh, yes. That's better.
Hit the button. Hit the button right in the center.
Yes? Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much for the invitation this morning. It's a little bit early, but I think I can get a few brain cells going here. I am very happy, especially to be part of something that is involving the chamber, because I'm a small business person. I've had a business, a very successful business here in Kitsap County for over 36 years. One of the reasons I'm running is I'm very pro-business. I'm very interested in developing jobs in our area, and I feel I have a lot of experience in doing that and knowing what the issues are for small business people. So this particular forum is close to my heart. I'm also an educator. I've been a teacher for 37 years. I have a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, and have taught at Olympic College, University of Maryland, public school system, and also as a private business owner. So I feel that I have the expertise. The biggest issue that we're going to be facing is education in this next session. And so would it be a novel idea to actually have an educator who is part of the legislature to make some of these decisions about what we need to do about funding education, what we need to do to support our teachers, how we need to decide on what's going on with our levy situation, which is very inequitable and wrong throughout the state, and how best to support our students, which are the most important resource that any country has, and especially here in Washington State, we need to protect and nurture them. So as an educator, I feel very strongly this is going to be a major issue, and I would be very much like to be part of that discussion. I am from a working class family. My parents worked in the shipyard. I'm from Kitsap County. My dad's a Navy vet. He's 96 years old. He's still alive and kicking, and that he wants to make sure everyone knows that. And my mom's 91, and so I'm very concerned about senior issues. I've learned a lot about that and helping take care of my parents. This has been a big issue for our family, so I'm kind of in that sandwich generation of having 3 college-age students. My youngest child is going to be senior at CP High School this next year, and then having parents that are quite elderly, and the kinds of issues and social problems that we have here in our society. Supporting senior citizens, I think, is a very important one. Also, veteran issues, huge, especially for Kitsap County. The majority of my business relates to Navy families. In fact, I've even developed an internet program in teaching. I have students in Japan at the bases. I have in South Carolina. I have in Florida, Pensacola. So all of the Navy bases, I actually teach via internet. So not only do I have Navy families here in this area, but I'm also working with them internationally. Jobs, huge issue. And I've got the red flag or badminton paddle up there. So we will continue, I'm sure, through these questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irene. All right. Okay, thank you all for clapping, and that was my last rule I forgot. You guys are so good to me this morning because you're reminding me just as that I'm a little bit behind schedule. I'm going to ask that you hold all the applause inside of you until the very end, and then you just because then everyone gets to hear your support for what they're doing. Otherwise, we'll be here a lot longer than we want to. I want to get to a lot of important questions. So thank you, Bill, for that applause. And with that, Dan, please.
Good morning. My name is Dan Griffey, State Representative, position number 135th District. A little bit about my background. I'm a professional firefighter by trade. Have been one for 25 years. Total experience, a little over 30 years now with my volunteer experience. I currently serve on the local government committee, which I have my position as assistant ranking member on that committee. I chose that committee because land use and property development use was a primary catalyst for my run for legislature. I also serve on the Public Safety Committee and the Local Government Committee, or the Education Committee, K-12 Policies Committee. The Public Safety Committee is a committee that deals with crime and punishment in Washington State. So what crime and what punishment you'll get. In that committee, I found that a newfound passion, and that is making sure that in Washington State, sex crimes are the most deplorable, second to murder, the crime that you can commit. In that, I wrote a bill that would remove the statute of limitations on sex crimes. I believe in Washington that if you commit one of those heinous crimes, that you must worry about being convicted your entire life. In the Education Committee, I was really proud to work on some reform legislation, and I will continue to work on the reform legislation to make sure that our educators have a proper working environment and a nurtured and supportive working environment. And on the local government committee, we've been working very hard on easing some of the local development requirements under the Growth Management Act, so our rural communities can have some of the same economic growth activity as our larger counties, King County and Pierce County. There really is a divide, haves and have-nots, with regard to how those rural districts can zone. A lot of times they're risk averse at this point in time in their zoning because of their very litigious society that we live in now. So if we ease some of those requirements and allow some economic growth in the smaller communities, similar to that we see in the bigger communities, we can put our folks back to work. Again, my name is State Representative Dan Griffey, position number 1. I really appreciate the Chamber for holding this event today, and thank you. It is very important that we dig down to the weeds and find out why we're running and what we're going to do and what our passions are in the 35th District. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Drew, please.
Thank you, Joe. Good morning. I'm State Representative Drew McEwen. I love the opportunity to be here this morning. I'm also a member of the Bremerton Chamber through the coffee shop I own in downtown Bremerton. And it's just great to be a part of this community. I first came out here in 1994, courtesy of the U.S. Navy. And I was talking with Larry just a little while ago, and it's funny, because on Friday night was the 30th anniversary of the commission of the submarine I served on. And it's funny, so here I am now in my mid-40s, I'm looking at that crew. My God, we're that young. And it's fun to see this community continue to grow and prosper, and a big part of that being the Navy. Looking forward to the opportunity here this morning to share thoughts and ideas and how we continue to move the state forward. The three main things I just want to address real quick. One, obviously, is education. We got a lot of work to continue to do there. We've made improvements. We've increased funding by the largest amount since 1980. We lowered class size at K through 3, but we still have a lot of work to do. We've got 4 through 12 left. I think we also need to look at an overall comprehensive reform package for K-12 in order to determine what that funding should be for basic education, for the opportunity to earn a diploma in the state of Washington. We also need to continue to look at reforms in state government. I was happy to have signed into law a bill that cut out a lot of the red tape in the state VA system and included National Guard and Air National Guardsmen who previously weren't entitled to a lot of the same programs that our other active duty folks are. And I was proud to have that bipartisan bill signed into law these last couple of years. And then also just looking at continuing to strengthen our economy. So at the end of the day, if we have a strong economy, we're able to fund the things that we need to do in this state, and people have the opportunity to pursue their life goals and dreams, and whether that's as a business owner or as a worker, whatever their choice may be. And had a bipartisan bill we're going to continue to work on that addresses B&O tax reform that basically would lower the rates and broaden the base. And in doing that, I believe we help create the opportunity for businesses to grow and strengthen and to hire more people. We're going to continue to work on those things as we move forward. Looking forward to introducing a major K-12 overhaul bill here next month and really moving the ball forward. So I'm not going to take a lot of time. I look forward to having the questions from you. I think that's more important to hear what's on your minds and to answer those questions. And again, appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. Like I said, the Navy brought me out here in '94, chosen to keep this as home, and got 2 sons who graduated from public schools in Mason County, and they're both in the Marine Corps right now, and one of them's just got done with the deployment, the other one's in training, so he's really loving life right now, but he's been up much longer than we have this morning. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And Craig, please.
Thank you. My name is Craig Patty. I am running for position 2 in 35th District. We have a fantastic district, one that I love to call home. I am born and raised here, lifelong resident. We're made up of 3 very unique and diverse counties. Up here in Kitsap County, we have a burgeoning economy that's fueled by our proximity to Seattle, as well as our Navy families. But we have some challenges in transportation infrastructure. In Mason County, we're rich in natural resources, but we have a little too high unemployment. And in Thurston County, thanks to state government, we have a strong and stable economy, but several ecological issues we need to face. Statewide, we have paramount duty to provide for the fully funding of our education system for our children. Like I said, I was born and raised in Thurston County. My wife and I have decided to raise our 2 children in Mason County, where we lived for nearly 10 years. And for the last decade, I've served as a firefighter up here for the City of Bremerton Fire Department. Back in 2013, as a member of the North Mason School Board, we had our own challenges that we had to face in our facilities. We were over capacity in our buildings, and they just weren't functional for the education delivery that we needed to provide in the 21st century. We were told time and again we would not be able to do what we wanted to do. But we rallied our community, and the result is a beautiful new high school, a modernization of the junior high school, as well as facility improvements to our elementary schools and our auxiliary schools that are now the pride of the community. And we did that by working together. That's the approach that I bring to Olympia. I think now is the time that we work together again and reinvest in ourselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Craig. So let's begin with Dan to get to lead us off with our question and answer period. And you actually are a generous audience. You get a softball this morning to get you started and to give you an idea how the 1 minute goes. So the question is, what are your top 2 concerns for the 2017 legislative session? What are your top 2 concerns?
Number 1 is we complete the work of the McClary Study Group and get the answer about how we're going to fully fund K-12 education. And number 2 is broader for me. I can't rank it up to 2, but 1, I want to end elder isolation abuse. I had a bill that I worked with Carrie Kasem, radio personality, Carrie Kasem's daughter, on how we can do something serious about that. Number 2, I want to end the statute of limitations on sex crimes. Again, I want to make Washington State a place where if you commit one of those terrible crimes, that you're going to worry about being caught the rest of your life. So I will be working very hard on those, and again, there's more and more and more, but those would be the top 2, 3 that I'll be working on. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And stand mic to Drew, your top 2.
Thank you, Joe. Top 2, obviously K-12 education. That's going to be the nameplate of 2017 and how we address that. And one item I want to put onto that real quick is I think we really need to get back to letting kids learn how to learn, and getting away from all the testing that we do. And, and have those opportunities when kids are starting their sophomore year. If they want to pursue technical education or vocational education, have those opportunities to do so. And let's not be so focused on sitting behind a desk necessarily, but really being able to go and apply and learn the different trades that are out there and the skills that are out there, and make sure we have the opportunities for those that want to pursue four-year education to do that after high school. So K-12 first and foremost. Secondly, as I mentioned before, I want to continue to work on B&O tax reform. That's got bipartisan concerns there. And we need to really address that so that we can streamline the system that, frankly, both parties have messed with over the last 85 years, and it is a tangled one. Thank you.
Thank you. And Craig, please.
Well, thank you. I echo the education, K-12 education. The two issues for me have to be the two issues that we're contempt of court for. Education, mental health funding. You fix a lot of our societal ills if we're able to fix the core issue of these ills, whether it's prison population, homelessness, addiction, all under mental health. We need to fix that. But not only that, we need to do it on time and not keep going to these special sessions over and over again. It's time to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Irene, please.
Yes, I agree that fully funding education, what that means, what is basic education through K through 12 is very important, and also carrying that over into university training, making university education affordable for people. We've made some progress on this in this last legislative session, but it's far from being solved. Also giving scholarships, number one, to Washington State students. I don't think that all the tax money and everything that we put into our Washington State departments of research and all of the assets that we get from our university system is used primarily for Washington State students. I would like to see better policies for our university system to support our students here. The second issue is jobs. If people have a job, if they have the training to get that job and they have a good paying job, then all of these other issues kind of disappear and float away. We have to have jobs, especially in Mason County, which has over 20% unemployment rate. So those are the two issues I'd like to address.
Thank you very much. Okay, so let's move on to our next question. Drew, you get to lead off. And since you all mentioned this in your top two priorities, one of our audience members wants a little more information apparently. Because the question is, how much does the state need to raise to fund McCleary, and where would you get it from? Drew?
So solve K-12 in 1 minute, and we haven't done it in 30 years. That's the gist of that question. First of all, we're spending approximately $18 billion on K-12 education right now. And one of the inherent issues with that very question is that we've continuously moved the ball on what is basic education. So first of all, we need to come back to fully defining what that is, and then reverse engineer that to get the funding. And with this time constraint, it's a little tough to go into all that. I'd say this, I'm a firm believer that let's create a separate K-12 budget. Let's do that. Let's sign that into law by March 30th. It becomes a one-line item in the operating budget, and we don't hold K-12 education hostage to the other things that are going on in this state. And this way schools can plan. We're not sitting there in May and debating the budget, and they've got to make staffing decisions and other things. So that's in a very concise 1 minute. That's the process that I want to go through, and certainly we'll have to expound on that a lot more outside of a minute.
Thank you. Greg?
As a school board member, the number that I heard the most was $8 billion of additional funding for education. Right now, we're about $5 billion away from that, including the funding that has happened through the legislature. We do that by closing several of the 650 tax loopholes we have on the books, which cost our state $30 billion every biennium. It's money, and those are not new taxes, those are taxes that are on the books. And we start, as I said before, and I don't want to sound that drum, reinvest in ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, Irene?
Yes, thank you. The big issue, of course, is getting more revenue. I agree with Craig Patty about having to be realistic about this. There is a task force right now in the last year working on this, how we need to fund and how much to fund. I don't think that these figures are absolutely set in stone yet, but the issue really is how to fund and how are we going to do that. The governor and many other legislators have put forth closing these tax loopholes that have no real evident advantage to our taxpayers here in the state, and that gets shot down every time. So I think we need to really look at this realistically and say, how are we going to get this new revenue? I think we have to also be very careful that that revenue that we finally do get is spent in a very judicious and careful way. We need transparency. People have to know what they're paying for. I think a lot of administrators, their paychecks are a little too high, when a lot of our teachers that are basically the Marine Corps of education are not being paid enough. So I think there needs to be a better distribution.
So I think that answer has to be broke up into thirds. One, regulatory reform. We cost our local school jurisdictions through regulatory burdens a huge amount of money. So if we reduce those regulatory burdens, we get to take a credit on that. I believe that you're going to see a levy reform, so you're going to see local levy shift. I think there's going to be a component of the state taking over the local levies. The crux of McCleary was over-reliance on local levies to fund basic education. One of the solutions we're talking about is how can we come up with a flat levy rate for the entire state of Washington. And third is we're going to need some new money. And right now, with the way the economy is growing, I believe, I concur with Representative McEwen. Basic education, funding education fully is the paramount duty of Washington State. Let's fund it first. Let's take our new monies and put it into our K-12 funding solution and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we move on to Craig. So the next question is another one on higher education. This might be a fast answer. I don't know. The question from the audience member is, should community college be free?
Well, thank you for that question. I am not a believer in free college. I believe in opportunities to provide work study. From my personal experience, I had just recently graduated with my bachelor's degree after going back as an adult learner. My parents paid for my first few years of college. I didn't appreciate it very well, obviously my grades back then. But when I went back, decided I wanted to go back and finish, I'm flipping the bill for it. Took a whole new meaning to it. But I do believe our tuition is too high. We need to provide some relief for that because kids coming out of college today, $50,000, $60,000 salary debt, they're already starting in the hole. That's unacceptable. We must provide affordable tuition, programs that allow them, whether it's working at the college through the summer, whether it's scholarships, however we can do it. But not having skin in the game, I just don't agree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Irene? Free college.
It's very difficult to study and to get your grades in college when you have to also have a full-time job. And in fact, you can't even have a full-time job now and pay for college because college tuition is so high. So we have a real issue about unaffordable college education. Unless your parents have that money or you want to take out huge loans, which by the way are not forgivable in any way, shape, or form. It is very difficult for people now to get, even the middle class, to get a college education. I agree with Craig in that I think that people should have some skin in the game, but you have to look at how much the tuition is. So I think that we need to bring our tuition down. We need to offer more rewards, especially to Washington State students versus foreign students. Let them pay full tuition. When I was at the University of Washington, most of my classmates were from the Pacific Rim countries. Almost all of them were on the same kind of scholarships that I was on. I never really understood that. So, anyway, I think we need to have some adjustments in who's getting the money for education.
And Dan, please.
I couldn't agree with Irene more on Washingtonian citizens getting a little more opportunities to receive the grants. I'm a huge fan of our community college system. Right now, the pathway to $100,000 a year salary is right now in the career and technical fields about 5 to 10 times quicker than going through the university program. So our community colleges are very important, and I think we can make our community college system more robust by bringing industrial and technical training back to the schools, having certifications that you actually achieve in school, pre-apprenticeship programs. When you get out of high school or get out of your career technical colleges, you would earn a certificate that actually gives you the ability to go out and, say in welding, make a very good living. So I don't know that it should be free. I think that we should have some skin in the game, but it should be easier to obtain.
Thank you, sir. Andrew, please.
Thank you. So a young lady that graduated with my son this past June, graduated from high school. She also simultaneously graduated with her associate's degree. Very minimal cost. Those are the types of programs we need to look at expanding, where you can be doing the dual track system and open that up even more. It's not available to every high school student in the state of Washington. I think we need to really look at how we can expand that. Programs like that are fantastic. And also going back to what I said earlier with starting to have more vocational technical education earlier in high school, I think creates those opportunities as well. And I think every one of us here are pretty much on the same page on this issue. And let's look at what's working and expound on those even more. And you know, on the flip side, there are other ways to do things. I recognize the military is not for everybody. I went into there, my bachelor's degree cost $800, but I gave up 6 years of my life for it. I recognize that's not the same path. That path isn't there for everyone. But let's look at other ways that we can do things, you know, and encourage students to pursue those opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so moving on to our next question. Irene, you get to lead off. Since we're on the topic of education, this audience is not going to let you off easy. So the audience member asks, if you fund education first, what will be last and unfunded? Irene.
Very good question, because this is the mantra that especially Republicans in our legislature are saying, that fund education first and everything else, let the chips fall where they may. That is not realistic. How can a child go to school when they have no food on the table? How can a child go to school when they have mental issues or learning disabilities? How can a child go to school when the parents are addicted to drugs? I mean, this is a reality for many, many families, and families that I have taught. So it's not enough to have a kid show up for school and supposedly sit there for 6 or 7 hours and be able to concentrate and think without food on the table, without some kind of stability in the home. So a lot of people say, well, that's not the job of education. You know what? As a teacher and as a mother and as a community member, it is all of our responsibility to take care of our children and make sure they succeed. And it's not just showing up for school at 8 a.m. and going home at 3.
Dan, please.
Thank you so much. So I don't think it's so much of what we're going to have to cut. I think the question is, if we do the local levy swap, like I talked to you about, we actually comply with McCleary, then we're talking about what enhancements now we get to education. So I don't believe there is a big cut here, because to comply with McCleary, we have to answer the first question, that our over-reliance on local levies to provide for basic education. So with that, I don't think there is cuts that needs to be made. I fully support that a child cannot go to school with an empty belly. I voted to fund breakfast after the bell, did not make it out, but I will be working aggressively on breakfast after the bell to all kiddos in Washington State, so they can come to school ready to learn, not with a growling stomach. This program, when we fund it, will be almost fully funded by a federal program. So I think we can do both.
Thank you, sir. Andrew, same question.
But yeah, it's not an either or proposition. What we've been doing in the state hasn't worked. Why are we talking about it? It hasn't worked. And so we need to look at innovative ways to do things. This isn't about cut